let me now, how? Now, let's make a step further through some other examples from movies. How can we detect this ideological background in popular culture? I think that the basic rule here is to apply the concept which was elaborated by structural linguistics of so-called differentiality. It doesn't only matter what a thing is, it only also matters as its positive feature what a thing is not. It doesn't only matter what you say, it only also matters what you don't say while saying what you say, of what is only implied in saying what you say. Of course, I hope you know that there is a dialogue, one of the best-known dialogues in Sherlock Holmes stories. This one is from Silver Blaze, short dialogue between Detective Gregory and Holmes himself, which provides the best example of differentiality. It's a short dialogue exchange about so-called curious incident of the dog in the night time. Here is the dialogue. Is there any other point to which you wish to draw my attention? Asks Detective Gregory Sherlock Holmes. To the curious incident of the dog in the night time. The dog did nothing in the night time. That was the curious incident. How does this work in ideology? There is a wonderful joke in Ernst Lubitsch's masterpiece, Ninochka. The hero visits a cafeteria and orders coffee without cream. And here is the wonderful reply of the waiter. Sorry, we have run out of cream. We only have milk. Can I then bring you coffee without milk? I think it's absolutely a correct answer. It's not the same thing, coffee without cream or coffee without milk. What you don't get, it's part of the identity of what you do get. In what sense? Because if you bring this logic to its extreme, you can also see how a double negation, when you don't have just, when you do not have, in this case, coffee without cream or milk, the result is not zero, but what? Another, my last example from popular culture, I think it's from early 90s. You remember the movie with Ewan McGregor before he became a Jedi, when he was still playing working class guys, Brassed Off. The hero accompanies to her home after their date a young, pretty woman who, at the entrance to her flat, tells him, would you like to come in for a coffee? He answers, there is a problem, I don't drink coffee. She retorts with a smile, no problem, I don't have any. What I like is that, you know, what you get through this double negation is probably the most, not vulgar, but open erotic invitation. Like, that's my point. I invite you for a coffee, then I negate coffee, and the result is not zero. The result is pure invitation. Why lose time with such dialectical jokes? Because I claim they allow us to grasp how ideology functions. To detect so-called ideological distortions, you should note not only what is said, but the complex interplay between what is said and what is not said. Which unsaid is implied in what is said? Do we get coffee without cream or coffee without milk? There is even a direct political equivalent to this joke about coffee without cream, without milk. A friend, an old dissident from Poland, told me. In a well-known joke from socialist Poland, a customer enters a store and asks, you probably don't have butter, or do you? The answer, sorry, but we are not the store which doesn't have butter. We are the store which doesn't have toilet paper. The one that doesn't have butter is across the street, and so on. Okay, but now let's take another, a little bit more elaborate example. In today's Brazil, they have carnivals, and as they like to put it, people from all classes dance together on the street, momentarily obliterating their race, class, and so on differences. But it is Obviously not the same if a jobless worker delivers himself to free dance, forgetting his worries about how to feed his family, or if a rich banker lets himself go and feels good about being one united with the people. They are both dancing on the same street, but the worker is dancing, as it were, without milk, while the banker is dancing without cream. You can also imagine a brushed-off dialogue between United States and Europe in late 2002, when the invasion of Iraq was being prepared. The US saying to Europe, would you care to join us in the attack on Iraq to find the weapons of mass destruction? Europe critical replied, but we have no facilities to search for the weapons of mass destruction. Then Rumsfeld or some American guy answers, no problem, there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. I mean, it was exactly the same logic. Now let's put things in a little bit more serious way. Why do we not see what, nonetheless, in a way, we see in ideology? How does ideology enact this suspension? I claim, I'm sorry if you know it already, but it's crucial, that there is a wonderful, apocryphal probably, anecdote from the First World War, which perfectly renders our predicament today, and how we see things that we see, but we don't see things that we also see. It's the anecdote about the exchange of telegrams between German and Austrian army headquarters in the middle of the First World War. The Germans from Berlin sent the message to Vienna. Here on our part of the front, the situation is serious but not catastrophic. To which, of course, as you know, the Austrians replied, here with us, the situation is catastrophic but not serious. Is this not more and more the way many of us, at least in the developed world, relate to our global predicament? We all know about the impending catastrophe, ecological, social, and so on. But we somehow cannot take it seriously. In psychoanalysis, this attitude is called a fetishist split. I know very well, but what? But I do not really believe it. And I think such a split is a clear indication of the material force of ideology which makes us refuse what we see and know. We can also call this the mechanism of what Freud sometimes refers to as Isolierung, isolation, where you accept a fact, but don't take it, you do not, what you abstractly know, you do not really, how should I put it, at a symbolic or affective level, you do not really integrate it. You just rationally deal with it as if this is the case, but again, you somehow suspend its, let's call it, symbolic efficiency. This, again, I claim, is how ideology more and more functions today. Ideology is not in what you know or you don't know. You can know quite a lot of things. Ideology resides in this underlying selection where some things, although you know them, you behave, act as if you don't know them. Let me improvise a little bit here, because I think this ideological mechanism is crucial. This is what I call the fetishist functioning of ideology. The old traditional functioning of ideology was more symptomatic. You know, symptom, like return of the repressed. You base your life on a lie, you repress, ignore some traumatic truth, but as we say it, whatever you do, the repressed will somehow return in one or another symptomatic form. Just to give you a stupid everyday example, the proverbial adolescent who is traumatized by sex and in order to forget about it, takes refuge in physics and mathematics. But then, you know, sooner or later, he tries to resolve a task like how much energy is released when two bodies hit each other and so on, and it's there. But a much more interesting, I claim, is the fetishist functioning, which again is operative today, where you don't deny anything. You just, through a fetish, enact a distance of not really accepting it, not really taking it seriously. Incidentally, as I developed also in this last book, Living in the End Times, this, I think, explains why and how, although we, most of us at least, probably not only believe scientists, and in this sense know very well that the situation is potentially catastrophic, but like really are convinced that this is the case, but nonetheless are not ready to do anything. Again, although we know there are threats of catastrophes, we cannot bring ourselves to act upon it, to do it. Here, fetish enters. What is fetish? I will repeat an old story of mine, which is very tragic. It happened to a friend of mine who was married, and his wife died. Young, beautiful wife, the usual story. You know, she went to a doctor, breast cancer, in 2 months, she was dead. What surprised us, his friends, is that this same guy, after the wife died, was absolutely ready all the time to talk about the most painful moments of the wife dying. You know, we didn't have to play any of these games. Oh, don't mention this in front of him, it will traumatize him. No, he was ready to talk about everything. So we doubted, my God, we started to raise questions. What's going on with this guy? Like, did he love his wife at all? Is he kind of a cruel, cynical subject or what? Then we learned the secret. Every time that he was talking about his dead wife and the most painful moments of her death, he was playing with a hamster in his hands, and the hamster was obviously his fetish. This was also the preferred pet animal of his wife, so in a way, playing with the hamster meant I can talk about it, but hamster was the fetishist stand-in for my wife is still alive. I don't accept she is dead. Now you will say, bullshit, this is primitive pseudo-analysis. How do I know it? Unfortunately, I do know it, because this hamster died half a year later, and immediately the guy collapsed, starved for a week, every second day made a suicide attempt, and had to be immediately hospitalized. So again, I claim that from here you can see how interesting is socially, ideologically, the functioning of a fetish. Fetishists are not idiots, like you have your fetish feet and see nothing else. No, fetishists can be very brutal, cynical, realistic. They pretend that they accept the life the way it is. Why? Because secretly their fetish enables them to acquire a distance, not to, as we put it in traditional terms, fully emotionally assume what they rationally know. For example, my thesis is that if you look at modern top managers, especially in the United States, one of the model fetishes is what I ironically call Western Buddhism, this kind of a vague spirituality, transcendental meditation, whatsoever. That's their fetish. They can play all the dirty market games, but deep in themselves they think, oh, I know this is just the game of appearances, the truth is in my inner self, and so on and so on. So again, you know, I claim that you cannot really be a fully cynical subject. People who pretend to be brutally cynical, I don't have any ideals, I know life is just a brutal struggle and so on, I claim there always is a fetish. The question to ask them is, okay, but where is your hamster? Or whatever form this hamster has. This is how so-called cynical reason functions. Here, although he is definitely anti-communist conservative, I respect Peter Sloterdijk, the German guy who already 30 years ago now, I think, in his first big book, Critique of Cynical Reason, proposed this formula turning around Marxist formula, Sie wissen das nicht, aber sie tun es. They don't know what they are doing it, but they are doing it. And Sloterdijk's formula was, they know very well what they are doing, but nonetheless they are doing it. Like, you know, it's no longer this kind of, in naive sense, false consciousness in the sense of you don't know what you are doing. It's more a mystery of following something although you know it's false. Like, it's a lie, but nonetheless you act as if it's the truth. This is the mystery today. This is why I think I mentioned before all those paradoxes of objectified belief. Like, you don't believe, but you follow a belief materialized in your social practical activity. And I claim Marx knew it. I've endlessly written about it, but nonetheless, I think this is the still eternal actuality of Marx's notion of commodity fetishism. Read Capital carefully, what Marx says there. He doesn't say we treat a commodity as a magical object, but in reality, commodity is just, I don't know, a knot, part of a network of social relations, and so on. No, for Marx, illusion is not in what we think. We can be realists. No capitalist is as stupid as to think, oh, commodity is something magical or whatever. Illusion is not in what we think. Illusion is in what we are doing. You may think you know what it is, and you can really know what it is. Let me give you a simple example of this vague analogy. Very vague, but nonetheless, with psychoanalysis. It's not even psychoanalysis, it's just naive notion of unconscious attitudes. If you are an adolescent, you may think your father is an idiot, and probably 99.999, like the Stalinist elections cases, your father is an idiot. So you think your father is an idiot and your father is an idiot. But this is not all. If you observe this same person actually interacting with his father, you will see a totally different attitude of fear, respect, even love, whatever. You know, that's the paradox. You may know how the truth is like that, but the illusion is in what you are doing. And again, at this level, ideology interests me. Now, when you said, can we change it? I think I'm not a pessimist here. I'm not this kind of a leftist paranoiac in the sense of, you know, the system is perfected, every transgression is already included, and so on. That was my whole point, for example, of that hamster point. No, when a guy is cynical, don't push him into, are you really cynical? No. Ask about his, don't try to convince him with how things truly are. He will accept that. Hit him at his hamster point, no?